that's what you have to sell them on. If you can't sell them on this even being, having any integrity and being a clean race, then you have nothing. And the sport's explosive growth that especially the U.S. has enjoyed over the last few years goes up in smoke. And what do you have now? We don't even have a podcast. I mean, for God's sake, somebody fix this before we go poof, and we don't even have any money.
And speaking of getting the party started,
for the victory lap though. They ain't never seen nothing like this before. Lit the room when I came through the front door. Ask me if I stress overcome, what for? Train on the tree, please walk my sycamore. Touch burning sands, cross lands and stormy shore seasons in the year, yeah. Switch gears, with keeping haters in the rear. After blood, sweat and tears and my goal so near. I see my victory so clear. I see my victory so clear. It's a day, we break through. 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 It's a day, we break through.
And welcome to the newest episode of everyone's favorite podcast that they just haven't heard of yet, the Gridiron Podcast, for you watching on Twitch, Twitter, and wherever we stream. I'm Sean Barie, and over there in the other box is Nick Shook, who usually has hosting duties, but I decided to take over tonight. Unfortunately, our other host, Katie Caldwell, has the night off, so it's the old Sean and Shook podcast. Nick, how you doing?
I feel like I'm listening to NPR right now, but like not in a bad way. Just like your voice is so silky smooth. It's like, welcome to another episode of Book Talk, brought to you by
everyone. Welcome to
Crispy
the Gridiron. Welcome to the Gridiron Podcast. You can tell I'm super serious about what I'm talking about because I'm whispering into the mic. I'm drawing you closer because I'm telling you a secret.
We have a lot of secrets to discuss, Sean, don't we?
We do. That's literally kind of just the entire theme of tonight's podcast, because there is never a dull day in the world of Formula One, so much so that normally we start off with the football world, the NFL side. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about the draft, the combine. Nick, you were there in Indy, so we're going to get your notes from the combine. Busy week for you out there, coming off the back of the Super Bowl in Vegas too. So hopefully you get a little bit of a rest. But there is no rest for the weary in the world of Formula One. Season kicked off last week in Bahrain. 2-0 surprise. Red Bull dominated. Max Verstappen won. Checo Perez 2, Carlos Sainz 3. There's your podium. It looks like it's going to be another short season for Red Bull. They're going to make quick work of everyone else. A lot of good fighting towards the midfield there. You can't even call it the top three anymore because it's Red Bull, then Ferrari, and then you have Aston Martin, McLaren, and Mercedes fighting. So it's going to be an interesting season from that point of view. Not an interesting season if you want some parity atop the driver standings and team standings. That's neither here nor there, Nick, because this entire kickoff to the season, it wasn't even the race anyone was talking about. It was what was going on behind closed doors or on WhatsApp messages that everyone was talking about. Go ahead and fill the people in.
I mean, where do we start, Sean? I mean, you have the whole.
I don't know.
You have the Christian Horner drama, which it's funny because like he was supposedly cleared of any wrongdoing, and then as soon as that happened, which it felt kind of grimy that he was just so quickly and swiftly cleared of any wrongdoing, then all the texts and everything that were exchanged were leaked to the media, and now are coming back around and they're going to dive deeper into it. And some of that got out, and I actually haven't checked it out, but I know you have, or at least you texted us and said that you have.
If you are just getting caught up on this whole Christian Horner drama, the team principal of Red Bull was allegedly caught up in a workplace scandal involving a female employee at Red Bull. She was alleging that Christian Horner was inappropriate, both in his actions and in a lot of other areas. And Formula One, or I think it was the FIA, no, Red Bull. Red Bull did an independent investigation, and Red Bull quickly found that their main guy at Red Bull just A-okay, no wrongdoing whatsoever, no wrongdoing. Red Bull investigated, and Red Bull said Red Bull was cool to go. Hours after that, Christian Horner was cleared. An anonymous email sent out thousands of files to journalists all around the world, and
the Pentagon Papers,
and just to up the pettiness level a little bit more, sent these files to all the F1 teams, to the FIA, to Liberty Media, which owns Formula One, and to, I said journalists, I said the teams, yeah, just pretty much to anyone who's anyone. And then all of the dirt started coming out. The WhatsApp messages started to be released. None of this has since been confirmed. Kind of hard to do that. But man, I took a look at it and kind of, I mean, if it's real, it's pretty damning. And so now F1's going to take a whole nother look at this stuff. That wasn't even the biggest story of the week, if you can believe it.
Sean, do you see the light? For those of you watching, by the way, we always recommend that you watch this on YouTube or on Twitch or even on Twitter, the platform now also known as X, where you can always chime in on the show. You can get in the chat and participate. We love to take your feedback. We want to hear your questions, your comments, everything. Check us out there. But if you're watching there now, you'll see behind me, Sean, that the background has changed. We have a bit of a glow, if you will. Some embers are burning behind me. Really, it's turning into a full-blown blaze. Use your imagination if you're listening on podcast, because that is what is beneath Christian Horner's seat right now. It's hot, folks. It's hot, hot, hot. Hit those T's. It's really hot right now, and it doesn't seem like it's cooling down anytime soon. So much, Sean, that Max Verstappen's father has gotten involved and made some very definitive statements in which he believes that Christian Horner should no longer be involved with the team, which has then ballooned into Max potentially leaving and going somewhere else.
Where's he going, Nick? Where's he going?
Well, there happens to be an open seat at a very prestigious team right now that's going to be open next year, and they happen to be the chief rival and the team that Max beat for his first world championship. That is Mercedes. It's getting messy, and it's getting messy beyond Christian Horner. There could be a massive ripple effect in Formula One, the likes of which I don't know if we've ever seen, at least not in the modern era. And it feels like it's only just beginning. It feels like this is not going away anytime soon.
To just kind of recap where we are now, first of all, Christian Horner gets caught up in what is essentially a workplace harassment scandal. It resurfaces in the form of thousands of files on a Google Drive to send to journalists and F1 teams all over the world. That turns into Jos Verstappen saying Christian Horner is tearing this team apart, and he is now not going to attend this week's race in Saudi Arabia because that'd be kind of awkward if he did. Little just, awkward. That has now led to a report stating that Christian Horner tried to basically form a coup d'etat at Red Bull and basically steal the team from its Austrian energy drink company and created in his own with the backing of some British financiers. That didn't work out. So now we know about a possible. Oh yeah, now we know about a possible coup that Christian Horner tried to orchestrate last year. That failed. Now you have Helmut Marko, and now you have Adrian Newey, who is basically to thank for all of Red Bull's success, saying we might not be here soon. We might go with Max, or Adrian Newey might go to Ferrari. Whoever, guys, all right, if you've been out there praying on Red Bull's downfall, you can stop now. I think the good Lord has heard you, because their downfall seems to be coming day by day, hour by hour.
And part of me wants to believe that, and then part of me wants to think that this is all just a little bit overblown. It's just the way that things like this happen. I mean, maybe. I'm sure this would be a great way to start next season's Drive to Survive. But I just got done watching one of the episodes of that Dynasty documentary on the Patriots and how they got into Spygate, and actually kind of was left feeling like I wanted more, and maybe I will get more in the next episode. But at the time, that was all the talk, right? And it was explosive, and it went on for a long time, as I recall it. I'm sure you do too. And at the end of the day, he was, penalized to a degree, but it never quite, the hammer didn't hit as hard as we thought. The Patriots went on to win multiple Super Bowls, and they survived. And I wonder if Red Bull survives, albeit in a different fashion, maybe in a different image. And this nuclear destruction that we're now considering as possible doesn't end up happening. Not to tamp down any of the chatter or anything else, but I tend to try to take a more realistic approach. But right now, it is juicy, my friend.
It seems like Christian Horner thinks he is Red Bull and he is invincible. And then you have his entire team around him going, "You're not, and we're about to show you." Because it's one thing that he paints himself in a bad light. It's another to now have the father of your brightest star, one of the most influential athletes in the world, and that is what Max Verstappen is now, as a 3-time reigning Formula One champ, talking shit, basically, about Christian Horner. Like, Jos and Christian were always cool, and now you have Jos Verstappen saying, I'm not going to go to these races anymore because I have just said too many bad things about Christian, which I believe to be true anyway. Oh, by the way, that wasn't even the biggest story. What?
Where do they go from here? Like that's my biggest question is like, what does this look like over the next month? Because like Red Bull is dominant and they're going to keep winning races, but how much can you win when everything inside is falling apart?
That's the thing. The machinery is sound. Max Verstappen is not going to, fall apart anytime soon. Like they're still going to win.
Great.
Yeah, like everything is going to go their way, but behind the scenes, it's going to just, I don't know, get uglier, I suppose. I hope. It's fun to watch.
Is the one answer just getting rid of Christian Horner? Does that solve everybody's problems?
I want to say yes, but then at the same time, what toll does that take on Red Bull itself? Because he has been there from the start. He has, to a degree, built this team in his image. So when you get rid of him, what does that look like? For now, in the short term, it's fine. Red Bull will still dominate this year and probably next as well until they change the regs in 2026. But then what happens?
Let's get Gunther Steiner in there, huh? How about that?
Yeah,
that's the perfect replacement. Everybody's
nobody
favorite.
fork smashes his door.
Yes, exactly. They look like a bunch of wankers. No, not this team. This team's a bunch of winners, not wankers. Let's get him in there and get him in a good spot where he can actually prove whether he's a good team principal or not. I don't know. I'm just thinking like 2 steps down the road after the dust has settled and everything. Lemon Bendy is chiming in right now and says, I'm an F1 novice here, but why would they let Verstappen out of the building rather than getting rid of Horner? And that's my point. Like this all goes away if you just get rid of Christian Horner, right? I hate to like downplay it or take away some of the excitement, but it's a pretty easy decision in my opinion. The only thing that stops that is some sort of contractual limitation or that you owe him a massive buyout or that he's got some sort of power structure in which you actually can't get rid of him, at which point I think F1 would be able to step in and do something if they actually find some wrongdoing. And the only people that end up with egg on their face are the people that cleared Horner initially and Horner himself. And by then, the minimal damage and Red Bull remains a good team and Max doesn't leave and everything's hunky-dory. That's just how I see it playing out personally.
Let me ask you this, Nick, since this is a Formula One and football podcast. What is the most important position on the field in the NFL? Is it the quarterback or is it the head coach?
It's the quarterback.
Then what are we talking about here? It's the same in Formula One.
Yeah, so get rid of the coach. I was just at the combine. I just listened to Terry Fontenot talk about how if they had better quarterback play, he'd probably, Arthur Smith it was Raheem Morris said if they had better quarterback play, I probably wouldn't be standing up here because Arthur Smith wouldn't have gotten fired. Terry Fontenot was sitting there talking about how he loves Arthur Smith, but they're moving forward. The coach is replaceable, my friend. Happens all the time. Do the same thing with Red Bull. Get rid of Christian. I love Christian's role and Drive to Survive. That's great. And I kind of like him as the villain, but if he's a creep and if he's done all this stuff, get his ass out of there. Let's move on.
Yeah, the sport will survive without him long after he's gone. And I mean, at this point, like you said, if any of what is being said about him, being reported about him is true, yeah, time to cut the cord. Let someone else take over Red Bull, and Max will still take care of the wins for the next season or two. Ironically, though, actually amazingly, not ironically, that still wasn't the biggest bombshell of the week in F1. I feel like we were gearing up for such a boring season because Red Bull was going to be so dominant again, and then we just get bombshell report after bombshell report after bombshell report because the newest news is that FIA president Mohammed Ben Sulayem, he's been a little bit of a naughty boy. He's been interfering in some race results. He's been sticking his nose where it doesn't belong. Even though he is the FIA president, he's still been trying to manipulate results and outcomes of races. And that you just can't do, right? This would be like Roger Goodell saying, no, overturn that penalty. It wasn't pass interference. Send it back. You know what I mean? Like last year in the Super Bowl, Eagles and Chiefs. No, Juju Smith-Schuster wasn't held. Back him up.
Yeah. So look, as you know, I'm an NFL employee, and we have a very big focus internally on maintaining integrity of the game, especially as legalized sports betting has been introduced. That's why none of us are allowed to bet on any sports. It's a very stringent policy. People have been punished. Players have been punished. And for good reason. Do you have to maintain that appearance of integrity? You cannot question the integrity of a league or else it loses all value and interest to the average consumer. The fact that the guy in charge of F1 has been trying to get his hands in the mess, he's pulling a Jerry Jones as an owner, trying to get involved in every nitty-gritty detail and make sure that the outcomes, that are produced are most beneficial to his liking.
By the way,
that's bad.
The FIA is not the same as Formula One. The FIA is the governing body over Formula One. So this is not just bad. It's weird that someone who's not even a part of Formula One, who oversees, like you said, the ethics and just the rules of Formula One, would try and manipulate a race. Allegedly, a whistleblower told BBC that, or in a report that the BBC got its hands on, that, God, I can't keep saying his name because I'm not good at it. Mohammed Ben Sulayem tried to overturn or successfully overturned a penalty to Fernando Alonso in Saudi Arabia last year. I believe that put him back on the podium. So that actually happened. And then in Las Vegas, he also tried to get, told officials not to certify the Las Vegas circuit for its race. Remember, we got to Las Vegas and there were a couple of problems. The track was kind of slick because it was too cold in Las Vegas. There was that manhole cover that came off, which, by the way, the same thing happened in Bahrain just this last week. A lot of downforce on these cars, right? So it wasn't even a Las Vegas problem clearly anymore, but he apparently was trying to, last minute, get officials to say, this track is too dangerous, we can't race here. After all the buildup, you're going back to Vegas, and he is trying to say, nope, don't want to race here, don't want to race here. That's a problem.
It's bad for business, really, more than anything, because, like you said, the investment in Vegas was staggering. They played it up like the 4th of July times 10, like the Super Bowl times 100. They wanted everybody to know, and the facilities were top notch. I went to the media party at the paddock. That thing's fantastic. But they wanted you to know. They wanted you to know that F1 wasn't just in the U.S. They were in Vegas, baby. The Sin City. At night, under the lights, with the beautiful view of the Strip. If he's getting involved in this, like that's a conflict of interest, or at least, like I said, it's bad for business to the point where that's not a good working relationship. And then if he's and as you know, the head of the governing board, which everybody hates the FIA, in case you didn't know, just like everybody hates officials in the NFL, they hate the FIA. Yeah, they hate the FIA because everybody hates people who make rules, right? But the guy who's making rules isn't even following his own rules, and he's breaking his own rules, allegedly. That's bad. That discredits your entire operation and then has a negative impact not only on F1, but then on every other racing series that the FIA governs. I mean, like, this is a really bad situation. It's a bad look for your entire board. And at that point, it's like, well, what do you even have? If you have no integrity within the people that oversee your operation, what do you have? What is the point for a fan to come out there and watch it? Because right now, you already have to sell fans on the races or the battles behind Red Bull. As of now, we'll see if that changes. But as of now, that's what you have to sell them on. If you can't sell them on this even being, having any integrity and being a clean race, then you have nothing. And the sport's explosive growth that especially the U.S. has enjoyed over the last few years goes up in smoke. And what do you have now? We don't even have a podcast. I mean, for God's sake, somebody fix this before we go poof, and we don't even have any money.
Well said. Well said. But that's it, thankfully, for any of the drama in F1 this week. Wait, I'm kidding. There's more. Because after the Bahrain Grand Prix last weekend, which again, Red Bull came in 1 and 2, their sister team, if you will. Actually, no, they're calling it their junior team again. Visa Cash App RB Formula One team. Things get a little testy on track, Nick, with Danny Rick and Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, that's wrong. Lower third. There we go. Don't look away and click at the same time, Sean. The old V-car boys, we're not being friends at the end of that race. If you want to get into the details of it real quick, this is essentially what happened. Yuki Tsunoda was chasing down the car in front of him, but couldn't pull off the overtake. He was in DRS range for a long time and just couldn't get the job done. He'd pull within 0.2 of a second. He'd be really close. I'd be sitting there. I was in there in Indianapolis watching it. Come on, Yuki. Come on. Finish the job. Finish the job. I'm eating some food. Come on. I just got done with pressers. Overtake him. I was actually watching a delay and didn't even realize it till later. And I was locked in. Could not turn it off because I'm like, this is back of the pack, midfield at best, but I want to see some hard racing action. Couldn't get the job done. And then behind him, as is common in F1, when one car is battling another, the car behind them tends to catch up because they are slowed while battling. They're not, taking the best lines. They're not putting down the fastest laps because they're battling. Well, Danny Rick shows up behind him. That's his teammate, Daniel Ricciardo. a fan favorite in F1 because he's both good looking and he's charismatic. Driving skills may have fallen off. We're still not 100% sure about that.
Jury's still out.
And before you know it, Danny's pulling up on him and it looks like he's going to take him. And before he even gets an opportunity to, they get on the radio, the old V-Carb officials, the leaders, and they go, hey, swap places. Danny's moving faster than you. And Yuki Tsunoda is pissed, livid, understandably so. He's trying to take down an opposing driver in front of him, and you're going to make him switch spots with his teammate? So they do the swap, right? And all of a sudden, Daniel Ricciardo's behind him, but he's not making any progress either. Neither of them are going to get, what was it, a Haas in front of him? They couldn't get around a Haas? I mean, my God, hello. Why is that a difficult thing to do in today's day and age? It was for V-Carb because that team's still working on some things. And then the real ace in the hole, the real thing that mucked everything up, Max Verstappen, who's already taken away the excitement of the race at the front of the pack. He's coming around, and they're all back markers to him. They all get blue flagged, and he picks them off. So after they do the driver swap, they each have to pull over and let Max through safely, which then pulls them off of hunting down the car in front of them, and they don't get another opportunity to do so until the very end. And by then, they're out of time. They're out of track length. They don't get the job done. Frustrating for all parties involved except for Max because he cruises off to a victory, right? Well, Yuki couldn't keep his emotions together, which we know Yuki in the car has had a hard time controlling his temper.
He has a hot temper on the mic,
He's a bit of a firebrand, but he took it a step too far, Sean. What did he do?
So on the cool down lap after the race, parade of cars, if you've never seen it, they're slow. I think they're going about 50, 60 miles an hour, and they're just waving out their cars to the fans. Yuki decides to dive bomb Daniel Ricciardo into a corner, hits the brakes hard, and locks up. Smoke comes off his back wheels. Daniel Ricciardo almost crashes into his teammate. Again, on
after the race is over, by the way. After the race is over.
This is the cool down lap. Has to avoid him. Yuki then, because of his locking up, falls behind Daniel. And Daniel goes, what the F was that? And then Yuki just speeds past him again, very aggressively driving. If you've ever driven basically anywhere in the United States and you go, man, what a you know what? It's basically what Yuki was driving like. It was Bush League. The video is out there. Go ahead and watch it. I mean, it was absolutely Bush League what Yuki was doing because he was pissed at the wrong guy. He was taking it out on Daniel. It wasn't Daniel's fault, okay? It was V-Carb. It was team orders. And you know what, Yuki? You had a chance to get past the Haas. You couldn't do it. It's not Daniel's fault. I don't know why you're taking it out on him. It's childish. And afterwards, Daniel even said, it's immaturity. That's what it was. Called out his teammate on international TV. It's immaturity. That's what it is.
I love this type of drama. I love the on-track drama.
As the Red Bull turns. The Red Bull turns.
I watched the race in 30 back tonight, and I noticed that Danny's driving with a Red Bull helmet, which I thought was a fun sight to see. Obviously, this being the junior team, he has the right to do that, but it was a fun little flashback. But what's more important is the fact that look, this is a midfield at best team. This is a team that has a lot to figure out. And if they can't even figure out how to drive together, I mean, look, when you're a teammate, your number one opponent is actually your teammate because they're the only person driving the same machinery as you. And that's how you can really test yourself against them. And last year, Yuki outraced his teammate, Nick DeVries, so significantly that they made a change in season. And then just when Daniel Ricciardo was starting to build some momentum, he breaks his hand in a crash and is forced out for a few races. And then basically the season was over. He didn't get an opportunity to really build some momentum. So this is the year to figure out whether he can actually be a competent driver again and whether this team can put together a car that's good enough for him to prove himself. To have issues with your teammate in the first race of the season to the point where he takes a swipe at you like that. And it's a dangerous swipe. Let's be honest. You don't want to crash after the race. That's going to cost your team money. It's going to be a dangerous situation. It's just not good. And this is Daniel. He's like 34. He has no time for this type of immaturity. He's in his 30s. He's off of this Gen Z stuff. Get out of here. I don't need your 20-something-year-old stuff. Get out of here. Let's race. Let's be professionals. They're not being professionals right now, but it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch because we do need intrigue. We need some spice. I cannot wait to see how they treat each other the next time they're on the track because suddenly there's a rivalry. We haven't had a teammate-on-teammate rivalry like this since Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen used to tangle when they were in Red Bull. And it's the funny thing is almost neither time has it been Daniel. Like, Daniel's a nice guy. I don't understand why his teammates hate him so much. They just have short tempers, and that's the nature of the sport. But it's going to be something that's really fun to track for the weeks and months ahead.
It should be. All right, we're headed to Saudi Arabia this week. You want to do some podium predictions and then move on to NFL?
Yeah, can I point out one thing real quick, Sean?
Yeah, go for it.
So last show, we said who are we cheering for? What are we cheering for the most this season, right? Because it's a given that Red Bull is probably going to win it, right? But there's other reasons to watch F1. We don't just tune in to see who wins the race. That's why there's a podium. We're focused on P3, maybe P2 occasionally, and maybe if we get lucky, P1. I have been very dialed in to what's going on at Ferrari because Lewis Hamilton is making the shocking jump from Mercedes to Ferrari next year. And in that move, he's getting rid of Carlos Sainz. Ferrari said, we like Lewis more than Carlos. Get out of here. He gone. Well, Carlos has one more year to prove them wrong. And he's off to a hot start, my friend. He outperformed the guy that they're choosing to keep in Charles LeClerc. He got a podium for himself. He raced his ass off. I mean, it wasn't just like, oh, I just lucked into P3. He drove his way to P3 in a competitive group right behind Red Bull. Oh, baby. That's what I wrote last week was Carlos Sainz revenge season. And it's off to a beautiful start, my friend. A hot start. Do you think that this is sustainable, or do you think it was just because Charles Leclerc had an issue with braking that prevented him from being competitive?
Carlos Sainz has now twice in his career been the other driver, right? He's been the side chick, okay? It happened at Renault when Danny Rick decided to move from Red Bull to Renault all those years ago. He was the driver to be named later, right? Winds up at McLaren, all goes well there, winds up at Ferrari. Now, once again, he's in the same situation. And by the way, both times, you can understand why those teams made that decision. Like back then, Daniel Ricciardo was a proven race winner. Carlos Sainz was not. And no offense to Carlos now, he has won 2 races, but at the same time, or is it 1 race?
Who was
2
the
races.
One driver that,
yeah, 2,
that
because he won Singapore last year.
Yeah.
So he's won 2 races. You're going to be replaced for the 7-time world champ any day of the week. I don't care how many wins you have. Anytime you have a chance to sign Lewis Hamilton, I'm sorry, you're going to be the driver on the way out. So it's really not been his fault either. But I do love a good revenge tour because that is what he's on. Yeah, Charles had some brake problems. He said every time he hit the brakes, his car would just veer to the right aggressively. And it was painfully obvious that was happening because he was going wide at about every corner. It was at one point I texted you during the race and said, what is going on with Charles? He is going wide every single corner. How is he doing this? And then we find out it's an issue with the car and the steering wheel. But that doesn't mean that Carlos can't beat Charles, in an even race for 24 straight weeks. He's done it before, and he could possibly do it again. I'm
so excited to see how often this shows up because he's going to be one of the most sought-after free agent drivers next year. And I just pray that he doesn't end up in a Williams, that another team that has a better car has an opening for him because he has been racing well for a while now. Even as Ferrari, the clown show that they are, has done everything possible to get in his way. And if there's anybody I'm cheering for outside of Max Verstappen, which is a foregone conclusion, it's Carlos Sainz, baby. This is the year of Carlos Sainz. I cannot wait to see how it unfolds. And the other thing I want to note, we have to give our Canadian co-host a shout out and speak on her behalf, even though she's not here, because her favorite Canadian on the grid did a little something special, Sean. What did he do?
Went from P20 to P10.
And how did he get to P20?
Yeah. Actually, I don't remember. Did he run to the back of someone?
He got dumped in lap 1, first
true.
Turn. I think it was Kevin Magnussen hit him from behind and dropped him.
Okay, I couldn't remember if he hit someone or if he got hit from behind.
He went on, I think, on a one-stop strategy and fought his way all the way back to P10 into the points. Dog rating on the rise, baby. A lot of dogging in this week.
And after that first lap, I said dog rating -5. Well, now his dog rating is at least up to a solid 7.2.
Yeah. Keep it going, baby. Keep it going, Aston. We want to see you more competitive. You, McLaren, Ferrari, let's make this interesting. Mercedes, maybe. I don't know. There could be more.
Not Alpine.
No, they're terrible.
They're not even worth talking about. They fired their entire senior staff, their entire senior technical staff, their CEO, their team principal. I don't even know who runs that. I don't even know who keeps the lights on.
I don't think they know who's keeping the lights on anymore either.
That is so sad.
It's uglier than their livery was. We thought that was the worst part. No, it turns out the car's even worse.
Oh, it's so bad.
Before we shift, let's note also something that we want you guys to track. And again, we always encourage you to chime in the comments. Get involved in the show, whether it's on Twitch, it's on YouTube, it's on Twitter. We're live in all 3 places. Give us a review, 5 stars, like and subscribe, all that stuff. If you 5 stars, Katie always says 5 stars, and 5 stars will help us vault us up the leaderboard, the charts, right? And you can do that on all your favorite podcast platforms. We want to hear from you. We want your participation. It makes the show more entertaining for everybody. And one thing that we want you to track alongside us this year is Katie had a great idea. I think it was. Look, we know Red Bull is going to run away with it probably.
Yep.
But let's give us a reason to pay close attention to F1 this year. Why not? Why not, Sean? Right? Let's do a little fantasy league. We did a little fantasy league in between shows. We did a little text chain, little draft, little snake draft.
Throw the teams up.
I broke Sean's heart a couple times,
He
did. This is what happened.
A couple of draft picks from me.
So those of you watching live right now or listening later, get your notepads out now. These are the teams. Sean, read them off.
All right. On Katie's team, I believe Katie titled, what did she title it?
The All Hot Team.
The All Hot Team. I can't
Something
tell you what
along
else she said about this team, but it involved a numerical something or other. Anywho, Katie's got Lewis, Carlos, Daniel, Alex Albon, Nico Hülkenberg, and Zhou Guan Yu. Nick, you let off strong here. You've got the all McLaren team, which may or may not work out for you. You got Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Lance Stroll, dog. Yuki Tsunoda, not a dog.
Hothead.
Yeah, really. Esteban Ocon and Kevin Magnussen.
Ooh,
yikes on those final 2 picks.
Tough last 2.
Tough last 2. Rounding out the teams, I've got Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Fernando Alonso. That's a strong front 3 right there. Then I got Pierre Gasly. Ugh, rough. Valtteri Bottas and Logan Sargent. My front 3 is good. My back 3, I have worries about. Logan was having a good race to his credit up until his steering wheel.
When will you quit? I know his steering wheel didn't work.
Okay, come on, like you can't.
I know
you can't fault the race on this one. Even Williams was like, "We're excited to debut our brand new steering wheel." It's the same technology that everyone else in the paddock has had for like the last 15 years that they are just getting on board with in 2024, and the steering wheel kept malfunctioning for both Logan and Alex Albon. So
the best part about it was the visor cam showing the steering wheel display, and it just says in all caps, "Car too hot."
Or on Logan's steering wheel, it said brake balance. Like the steering wheel thought I needed more brakes when I was on the straights.
This is like
imagine.
This is the state of video games these days. Every big game comes out unfinished, and it's a nightmare for 3 months until the developers have time to patch it. That's like Williams' steering wheel. They're just like, we're steering wheel is a live service. You just got to roll with us. We'll figure it out eventually. Imagine
trying to go 200 miles down a straight, and your car hits the emergency brake as you go into a corner.
Cyberpunk, the steering wheel.
Either way, you'll notice that there are no Red Bulls on this list. That was our rule. We cannot draft any Red Bull drivers aside from the junior team. So Katie's going to tabulate the points. We're going to have the updated standings for you after Saudi Arabia when we record next. So we'll tabulate Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, and then we'll see who's who. If I had to guess, I would say that Katie is solidly in the lead. Maybe not solidly, because you had 3 drivers in the points. So did I. And she only had 2 drivers in the points, but she did have Carlos, who technically won this week. So, yeah, I'm probably pretty even right now. Podium predictions, real quick.
God, Max 1. Carlos 2. Checo 3.
I'm gonna go Max 1. I'm gonna go Checo 2. I think it's another 1-2. And then I'm going to go Charles 3. That Ferrari looks mighty quick. So I'll go Red Bull, Ferrari.
I am holding out hope that it gets more interesting than it was. I don't think it's going to be as much of a snooze fest as it was last year. I don't. I think that Ferrari and Mercedes have made enough improvements to make it a little interesting. I still want to see what McLaren can do, and I still want to see what Aston can do. And if we've got 4 teams in the mix, that's more than we had last year. Even at this stage, that's more than we had last year. We'll let it play out.
McLaren keep talking like they know what the issue is and they know what the problem is, because remember, they came into this season as the just absolute favorites to be that second car behind Red Bull. Not the case. They look slower than the Ferrari. They are slower than the Ferrari, and at times look slower than the Mercedes. So they sit at 4th right now after the first race, but they keep talking like, we know something's going to change here soon. So,
and I'm really encouraged by the way Lewis is talking about the car, because for the first time since 2021, he sounds supportive of the car. He said they actually built us a car we can compete with, and that's more than he could have said about the last 2 cars. So we'll see what happens there.
All right, let's shift gears. No game show this week. No, do you even know? Because it's not fun with 2 people. It's fun with 3. So we'll skip that. We'll save it for next week. Katie just wants to abolish it, but I say we just ambush her next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's coming.
We're getting out of order. It's all you, Katie, now.
Exactly. Let's move over to the NFL now, Nick, because breaking news out of this week was the Denver Broncos released Russell Wilson, and the Buffalo Bills have released everyone.
They really have, though. All right, let's attack Russell first. Let's get
do a
this
single
over
screen
with.
because I got to plug my computer in.
Okay, that worries me for the connectivity of the remainder of the show. All right, it's just me here. Hello, blue background. I'm not a big fan of it. Let's get more intense here. Let's make the app cooperate with us. Let's just go back to clear white. All right, so Russell Wilson, not great in 2 years, folks. This is a guy who the Broncos gave up a ton for in their trade to acquire him, including Noah Fant. He was not the only player involved in the trade. They handed him a 5-year extension. He never saw it. He had 2 years remaining on his existing deal. He played those out, and now he's gone. And he's gone because he was never anything close to what they thought he would be. There were signs of this in his last year in Seattle, and everybody just thought, well, it's just a microcosm of what's going on with the Seahawks. It's nothing more than that. He'll still be great. We're the Broncos. We've been desperate for our quarterback since the moment Peyton Manning rode off into the sunset with his noodle arm hanging off of his shoulder, champion of Super Bowl 50. Well, guess what, Broncos? You swung and you missed spectacularly. And now you're back to square one with no answer at quarterback once again, and an $85 million dead cap hit. That is the highest dead cap total in the history of the NFL, and it's all because you handed a guy an extension before you even got to look at. This is like this is like buying a car without test driving it. Okay, are you sure that the brakes aren't warped? Are you sure that the steering's fine? It's got 35,000 miles on it. Should be good, right? Yeah. Well, Russ came to the Broncos with about 75,000 miles on it, and I don't care if it's a Toyota or a Honda or a Mercedes. There's still going to be some concerns. Maybe the catalytic converter goes. Maybe there's a bad tie rod. Those are different fixes. Catalytic's going to cost you, depending on the brand of the car, $1,000 or more. Tie rod, cheaper fix. Well, this was more expensive than both. They needed a whole new engine block because Russell Wilson was cooked. And now the Broncos don't have a quarterback, Sean. And what they also don't have is a plan. They don't have a plan, my friend. They don't know what to do going forward. And I'm worried about them because they have a defense that I thought was good enough to compete. They have talent on offense, and they've got nothing to show for it. And I'm very curious to see, because Jarrett Stidham, 2 years in a row, plays the last 2 games for a team that did not want its quarterback that it's had. But that's not the answer. Where do they go, Sean? Where do they go?
What's Brock Osweiler up to? He's just calling college football games, right? What's Trevor Siemian up to?
Brock Osweiler's getting another grammatically incorrect tattoo on his arm. That's what he's doing.
Isn't it funny that, like, the Denver Broncos have had some of the greatest quarterbacks to ever walk the face of the earth. Yet at the same time, they've also, in those same moments of change, just turned to the worst. Like, Peyton Manning goes away. All right, well, Brock Osweiler can do it. And he did a serviceable job. But then when Peyton Manning really goes away, Trevor Siemian's our starter. What? I don't know what the answer is going to be. You would like to think, if you're a Denver Broncos fan, that with Sean Payton at the helm, you'll figure it out. Like something will come along. You can either, they're in a spot to draft a quarterback. Like they had such a bad year that they are in a spot to draft one of those, 5 probably quarterbacks that could go in the first round. I'm counting right. Yeah, 5.
Let me think. Drake May, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy. Yeah, that's probably 5.
So, yeah, about 5. Yeah, 5 could go in the first round or, first and second round there, early in the second round. They're in a spot to do that. I don't know. There's also,
their current depth chart is Jarrett Stidham and Ben the Big Nooch DiNucci.
Ben DiNucci. Yeah, I don't know what you do because there's not any the only big name quarterback out there in free agency is Russell Wilson. There's also Kirk Cousins. That seems unlikely, but I don't know what you do with this. Like, What do you?
Well,
What
the
do
thing is you can't go get you can't go get a Kirk Cousins because you have that massive cap hit. Like you
Exactly.
don't have the money to
So
spend.
you have to draft a quarterback
and tie yourself to a quarterback. Like this is, I don't know about Sean Payton's. I think he's got more security, more leash, more rope in his tenure. But like GM George Payton's in a tough spot right now because he's the one who orchestrated this deal. He's the one who replaced John Elway, who, by the way, promoted himself out of getting fired. Savvy move, pro move out of the Hall of Famer himself.
Respect the hustle.
Yes, absolutely. And now they're in a crossing point where they played well enough through a stretch last year with Russ at quarterback to get back into the playoff hunt before they realized that their ceiling was still pretty low, that Russ was not going to be the guy, and that Russ was not going to be worth that money. So, like, I give them credit for acknowledging their mistake and cutting ties. But the problem is that now they are forced to make a move to get a quarterback or else resign to the fact that they're going to suck again, like they did with Simeon, like they did when Joe Flacco came to town and got hurt, like they did with Osweiler. Like, it's never been good. I feel bad for Broncos fans who were like 2 years ago, we got our guy. Russ is here. I mean, I think about that Nathaniel Hackett press conference. Wow. Russell freaking Wilson. Wow. 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 Well, all they're saying now is, wow, here we are again in the same spot as we were before.
Wow.
Gee whiz, what do we do? So not a shock because Sean Payton went to the podium in Indy last week and said, we'll have something done on that in the next week or two. And they didn't even wait a week to get that done. So they move on. And the one thing I don't want to pay attention to now, and I hope everybody kind of moves on, is anybody talking about Russell Wilson as like a franchise quarterback anymore. Those days are beyond him. They're behind him.
Yeah.
He had a nice run. He'll go somewhere. He'll get a Baker Mayfield level contract, maybe a little bit more, and he'll be who he is, which is a guy who's over the hill and had a nice run. But that is not the only news that we have in the NFL, Sean, because as you said, the Buffalo Bills cut everyone today. Okay.
And they're still somehow over the cap.
Yeah.
Even though $30 million has been added to the cap.
So that was actually a big boon for a lot of teams, right? Like the Browns are one of them. Like they have 6.7 million in the cap space right now. The Steelers 7.9 million. And that's solely because the cap bumped up. Otherwise they'd be over the cap right now. Now look, I'm going to say two things here. One, the salary cap is kind of a myth. Let me just say that now. It is kind of a myth. If you need proof, look at what the Saints did with Drew Brees for years. You could tack on void years and restructure guys to get under the cap. It is a bit of a myth. You can find ways around it. Nobody's in as bad of a situation as that big red number indicates this time of year. But at the same time, the Bills didn't just cut like one or two guys today. They cut Tre'Davious White. Like Tre'Davious White, when healthy, is one of the best corners in the NFL. Now, he suffered a knee injury last year. And
he's only played 10 games in the last 2 years.
And the first read on it for me was, oh no, that knee must be really bad. If that's what happened, that knee must be really bad. The Jordan Poyer thing was expected. We knew at the end of last year that they were not going to have both of those safeties, that safety tandem that they've ridden for years. They were not going to both be back. We just knew that change is coming because they couldn't afford them. This is what happens when you go all in every year. The Rams just did this last year where they had to reshuffle the deck and accept and send out a letter to their season ticket holders that, hey, look, we're not going to make moves this year. We're not going to be as good as you expect, but we're going to try. And they actually tried their way to a playoff berth, and it's credit to them with a bunch of no-name guys. I don't see the same future for the Bills. They have the quarterback. They have a running back. They have the receiver. They have an offensive line that should be good enough. And they still have their coaching staff intact and a coaching staff that found a way to get more life out of the offense after changing offensive coordinators in the middle of the season. But there are still pending free agents that they are not going to be able to keep, Sean. Daquan Jones, Leonard Floyd, Micah Hyde, the other safety, and Taylor Rapp, the guy that replaced Poyer, at least on the depth chart. They're all pending free agents. And the 2 deep, you keep going down. AJ Epinesa, Jordan Phillips, Dane Jackson. Like, you keep going down. Poona Ford in the 3 deep. Linval Joseph, who was already going to be gone because he's a veteran. There are holes that they're going to need to address. And I think it's going to come to the draft. And for a team that expects to win a championship, that does not work like this, Sean. This is not a team that suddenly just acquires talent and they're pro ready right away. So, folks, in Buffalo, I know you're really excited about that stadium that you're building and the pit and how you got to feed somebody to the pit to keep your good luck going and everything. You might want to feed your GM to the pit right now. I know that's extreme. And I know I'm going to acknowledge that right off the bat right now. But you're in a tough spot. It's going to be a lot of new faces. And you better hope that Josh Allen can carry you to another playoff berth like he did last year.
Buffalo Bills Mafia, I should say, love to sing, you know, you make me want to shout. Well, they are shouting right now, and it's not a good kind of shout.
Make me want to cry.
Make me want to cry.
It's bad.
A little bit softer now. A little bit softer now.
I mean, look, you got to give the NFL credit, man. Always stays in the news. I mean, yesterday was the tag deadline day. Got a number of guys tagged. Some guys didn't get tagged. Some guys got transition tagged. Today, you got a bunch of cuts. Free agency starts next week. The negotiating window starts on Monday. They call it the non-tampering period or whatever it is, but it's a negotiating window. Let's just be honest. It never slows down. That's why I have bags under my eyes, because it never slows down. But man, it's always in the news. There's always something to talk about. And this is not the last of the roster changes. There were other roster changes that happened around the NFL today beyond the Bills, but the Bills certainly led the way with Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, Mitch Morse, who's a center, Saron Neal, and Deontay Hardy, and running back Nyheim Hines, who they acquired in a trade by sending Zach Moss to the Colts, who played better than Hines did. Now, Hines did return a kick for a touchdown, but yeah, they restructured Von Miller's deal, which I thought they were just going to outright cut him because he couldn't even get on the field when he was healthy end of last year. I thought he had.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. To see all the cuts, I'm surprised that Von Miller's still on that team.
What was his dead cap? That's why. Because if they would have cut him before June 1st, they would have actually lost money in dead cap. They would have had $21.7 million in dead cap. They would have lost $6.6 million, which means they would have added dead cap to this year, which would have buried them deeper. A post June 1st cut would be $8.7 million in savings, and a restructure would save them $5.5 million. So according to Over the Cap, and I don't know if these totals are updated because Tre'Davious White is still on the books. Let's see if anybody else is here. Some guys are gone, some guys are not. So going to need that to get updated, but this is not going to be the last of the moves that we see in the NFL. We are going to see extensions. We are going to see signings. Zach Ertz signed a one-year deal with the Commanders today. Dak Prescott has not gotten an extension in Dallas yet. Mitch Trubisky's going back to Buffalo. They cut the guys so they can sign Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah,
Sean.
how about that? They cut half their team, but they signed Mitch Trubisky back. Good for him.
We love it. We love signing a backup quarterback who sucks. And I'm going to say that flat out because he was not good last year.
He sucks. Bad as
by the way,
it was, Mitch Trubisky was worse.
A little bit of intel, Sean. Another year, Kenny Pickett, my friend, and this is the year he's got to prove it. That's all I'll tell you.
No.
Sources say that.
Well, here's the thing, too. I don't mind that either because I look at what's out there and I don't want to sign Kirk Cousins to a king's ransom because at the end of the day, like, yes,
you don't have the money.
But what is he really going to get you? Like, unless Kirk Cousins can come to Pittsburgh and do kind of a Matthew Stafford type season and win you a Super Bowl, it's not worth it to me. It's just not worth it. He should stay in Minnesota where he is beloved, where he's become an integral part of that community, and that team just stay there. I don't want – he needs to go somewhere he's either going to immediately win a Super Bowl or that can pay him big, and I don't think either of those things describe the Steelers right now. So, yes, I'm fine with rolling Kenny Pickett out there because I – especially – for all the reasons you just ran through, do not want Russell Wilson either.
Oh no. Let me get on the stand here for Kirk Cousins for a second. Kirk Cousins finished in my top 10 in the QB index this year. He played half a season, but he was playing some of the best football of his career before he
was.
He can still sling that rock, and he's got years of experience and composure in the pocket and arm talent still there. He's still better than anything you have on your roster. He would upgrade your offense, but I don't think you get the Matthew Stafford level of return. You also have to consider that Rams team was loaded all around Matthew Stafford. They just needed the quarterback to get the job done. But I do think you would see a playoff appearance with Kirk Cousins and maybe even a playoff win. He's not great in the postseason. He's not great under the bright lights, but it would be better than what you have.
That's my problem. The Steelers got a playoff appearance with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph.
Yeah,
so,
And like you're not the team that's gonna go get a 35-year-old veteran and try to make a push. That's not who you are right now. But Sean, let me ask you this, because this is all the talk. Would you like Justin Fields?
Personally, no, I don't think.
And why is that?
I haven't seen enough in Chicago to make me want Justin Fields. Because there have been flashes, and then there have been, holy crap, what was that? Moments watching Justin Fields. Would he be an upgrade over Kenny Pickett? Yeah, probably. Would that work out, though? I don't know. And apparently, as the Bears are finding out, there's not much of a trade market for Justin Fields. They wanted at least a second rounder for him, maybe a first rounder. No one's offering that.
No, they're not good.
It seems like teams are offering like a 4th and maybe a 7th. Which, I mean, take what you can get at this point, or wait until after the draft, wait until after free agency, and wait until there's a really desperate team that needs a quarterback, and maybe they'll give you maybe a 3rd and a 7th. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's a big trade market for Justin Fields, and that also tells me a lot. There's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks. No one really wants them.
It's also a leverage game, and that's the problem when you throw all your cards out on the table. I mean, you played poker before, Sean. You don't throw your cards out on the table before the round is done. Blackjack, you don't throw your cards out on the table. Oh, actually, it's already out on the table, but you know what I'm saying. Poker, you don't show your hand. You don't show your hand. They've shown their hand. Everybody knows what they're going to do. Why would they actually make a decent offer for a guy that they know they're going to struggle to get rid of? It's the same way that the Browns had to just accept a 5th for Baker Mayfield back in the day. They don't leverage. It's a leverage game. They're losing that battle tremendously. So if you're the Steelers, why not send him a 5th? You know what I mean? Like, why not?
Here's the thing. If they can get Justin Fields for, like a 4th round pick or a 5th round pick, fine, whatever. Yeah, I'm okay with that. If that's because Mike Tomlin kept saying, and Omar Khan has said, they're going to bring in someone to give Kenny Pickett some competition, whether that's Mason Rudolph again, whether that's Justin Fields. I'm fine with that. Like, I really am fine with that. But do I want Justin Fields to be the answer to quarterback in Pittsburgh? No, I do not. Because I don't think he's the answer to anywhere, honestly.
You may regret those words in the future.
That's okay.
You may regret those words. Let's take a moment real quick before we wrap everything up to celebrate your market and celebrate a mainstay in Tampa. And he goes by the name of Mike Evans, who received a handsome 2-year, $52 million deal to stay with the Buccaneers. For those of you keeping score at home, those of you who have your calculators, your TI-84s out, your pencils in your ear, you got a notepad there to take notes, even though you got a calculator in your hand. That's $26 million a year, folks, for a receiver who's over 30, for a receiver who is Baker Mayfield's #1 target, who had a great year, who proved that he can still get away from defenders, separate, and make big plays, and he's still a stud, a pylon, a pillar in the end zone when you throw from 5 yards or less out. Like, 1st and goal from the 1. Go look at the numbers. How many times they just throw fades to Mike Evans over the last few years. It's a bread and butter play. They did the right thing. They kept him there with a deal that doesn't lock them into it long term, but pays him handsomely in the meantime. And you know what else they did, Sean? I know you're on board with this. They gave Baker Mayfield the #1 reason to not even consider going anywhere else, but right back to Raymond James Stadium and run it back with the Buccaneers.
I thought it was smart, especially because, and now, hindsight is 2020. The report that, Mike Evans wants to test free agency. He wants to win a Super Bowl first and foremost, and he wants to be paid like a top receiver. Well, that's a lot of, that's a lot of wants on that list, right? Like, what do you want most? Do you want to win a Super Bowl again? Do you want top, 5 money? Do you want to not play with a rookie quarterback? Clearly, that was all a leverage play from his agent, because it kind of came as a surprise. I'll tell you this, to everyone down here in Tampa Bay, when the news broke, it's like, oh, wait, really? We were expecting free agency, but awesome. Mike Evans is going to stay a Buck. And you're right. That gives Jason Light an opportunity to call Baker Mayfield and say, we got everything here for you. The defense is coming back together. They franchise tagged one of the best safeties, Antoine Winfield Jr. He's coming back. We've got your #1 receiver right here. Everyone, the band is back together. And at the very least, we can dominate this crap division, okay? We already made it to the divisional round. Maybe with a little bit of luck, we get into the NFC Championship game. Maybe with a little bit of luck, we host an NFC Championship game. All the cards are on the table now for the Bucks. There's a lot of optimism down here in Tampa, man.
Question is, big question, big one that we're going to have to figure out, and it's going to take us all season to figure it out. What are the Buccaneers without Dave Canales next year? Are they the same team? Do they take a step back? Is that money worth, is it worth spending? Is Baker Mayfield the same guy? I think Baker will be. But it's tough to replace an offensive coordinator who was so good in his only year as an offensive coordinator that he ends up getting a head coaching job. That is the big question mark that they're going to have to answer. It's going to take them a while to do so, but credit to Jason Light for doing everything in his power to retain as much premier talent as possible on this roster. And like you said, dominate a crappy division. If there's any division in the NFL that's for the taking, it's the NFC South. And right now, the Buccaneers, after taking it home last year, are the preeminent favorite for every good reason, especially as I expect them to do if they keep Baker Mayfield and he runs it back, because he had a great year and he was really fun to watch. And I'm excited for you to cover him again, because and I can't believe I'm saying that, because a few years ago I'd have been like, good luck.
I know. I can't believe I'm saying it either. It is fun to cover Baker Mayfield.
It's the turntables. All right, let's hit our last segment of the day, sir. It is hate it or love it. Sean, what's your hate?
My hate. Ooh, what's my hate? I don't know if I have a hate right now.
I don't know if I have anything for this.
I have a love. Can I start with love this week?
Sure, why not?
I went to a baseball game with my dad last night.
Aw.
Right? I'm 31 and I can still enjoy a baseball game with my dad. It was partly because, and you'll love this, so for the past 2 years, I've been shooting a series on spring training destinations for my station down here in Tampa called Out for 9 Innings with Sean Barie on Fox 13. Go check that out. Shameless plug.
I thought it was gonna be like a state what is that, like the state visitor board, the tourist board, like visit Cleveland, everything's here. Ohio,
is
the
it
heart
though?
of it all.
Is it though?
No, I mean it's cool, but no.
But anyway, so it was actually my off day yesterday. So I bought tickets to go to a Pirates game down in Bradenton for spring training with my dad. He lives in Naples, and I drove down from Tampa, so a little closer to me, but kind of halfway in between. And no, it was just fun to go to a Pirates game with my dad once again. But I decided to let that be the day, because I go to all the spring training stadiums around the Tampa Bay area, and we have 7 just within like an hour's drive of Tampa. So it's great. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take my GoPro. I'm going to take my, wireless microphones, and I'm going to make my dad the feature of this spring training story, because I like to feature fans. I like to feature all the food and the sights and the sounds. And this year I'm focusing more on the fans and their stories. And so I said, you know what? I've been telling everyone else's story for the last decade of my career. I think it's fair if I, for one day get to tell my family's story. And so I put a mic on Big Bob Barie and let him walk around the stadium, and he was chatting people up, and people were coming up and complimenting him on his Italians shirt, Y-I-N-Z, Italians, from the Mancini Bread Company in Pittsburgh, and he was just being a yinzer, and it was great. So not only did I get to go to a ball game with my dad, but I got to relive a lot of memories, and it's going to be a cool feature piece, so look for that. So that's what I love.
Good. And you know what? I'm not going to do hate either, because we're all about optimism and spreading positivity here, right? And I have too many to name anyway. All right. So my love, Sean, is not as personal as yours, but I'm going to say it anyway. Folks, last night I was at the gym, and the Cleveland Cavaliers were playing the Boston Celtics in a nationally televised game. And the Cavs, without Donovan Mitchell, well, they were struggling. Every time I looked up, they were down 6-10 to 12 to suddenly 22 points in the fourth quarter, which is right when I wrapped up my workout. I said, well, this game's over. I'm going to go grab my things and get out of here. From the moment I finished my last set and then rolled out and did some stretching at the end, because, folks, once you turn 30, you got to stretch after you work out, or else you'll end up super tight. And you don't want to start that process now, because by the time you're 50, you'll be all stuck. Stiff,
I have a hate.
Can't move. Yeah, that's your hate. And I go to the locker room and grab my things and come back out. It's suddenly an 8-point game. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I get in the car. It's a 3-point game. I turn the radio on, get out of the parking deck. The Cavaliers have taken the lead. They hang on, and by the grace of the basketball gods, they get a review of a bad foul call in the final seconds to go their way, and they take down the NBA's best team in the Boston Celtics, winners of 11 straight entering last night. They take them down by 1 point. Without Donovan Mitchell. Folks, it was the largest comeback in franchise history. 22 points with about 8:36 left in the fourth quarter. And if it had been in the playoffs, it would be akin to the Falcons' collapse of a 28-3 lead against the Patriots in the Super Bowl. That's what it felt like, at least in Cleveland last night. I love that this basketball team is so inconsistent, but I love that I am a Cavs fan and can enjoy these things. And special moments in sports like these, no matter who you're a fan of, are always really fun to enjoy.
Hashtag let him know, Nick. Hashtag let him know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you still remember the phrase from 4 years ago.
Well, they still use it.
I know, but I remember, I think
time for a new hashtag, by the way.
They debuted it. Well, they did all for one for all for like 15 years. They debuted it at the game that you and I went to a few years ago against the Hornets.
I remember I got the t-shirts. It was opening day, opening night, whatever. And there was like a half empty arena.
LaMelo Ball. We got tickets on the dirt cheap. That was
We
before they
did.
had
We
Vettel.
did. Yes. Yes. And we saw LaMelo Ball and the Charlotte Hornets beat the Cavs.
Yeah. Did they? Did they win that game?
Yeah. Yeah. They won that game.
Yeah. All I remember is that you ordered chicken fingers later. You or Kumi ordered chicken fingers later, and there was a big piece of broccoli in the middle of one of the chicken fingers.
I think that was me because I couldn't find anything open in the second half of the Cavs game. Like I couldn't find any food. I was like,
We went to a bar afterward, and Sean breaks it open. And he's like dealing with stomach issues, and he just goes, "I can't even eat this. Look at what's in there." I was like, "Oh my! All right, I'll eat it."
Some broccoli, man. I don't want broccoli. I want some chicken fingers.
All right, I think that's it, Sean. I think we've done
That
it.
is. This has been episode 28 of the Gridiron Podcast. Nick, thanks for letting me host and officially take your job forever. You are fired.
I mean, that's fine with me. It's one
For
less
Nick
on my
Shook.
plate.
For Nick Shook and Katie Caldwell, who we send our love to up in Canada, this has been episode 28 of the Gridiron Podcast. And as always, folks, live life in the fast.